We all are witnessing a piece of UFC history here tonight.
This place is deafening right now.
I got chills, man. I can't believe it's really going to happen. It is going to happen.
So UFC 193 went down November of 2015 in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. The UFC in Australia is like what the NFL is in the United States of America. It's absolutely enormous, and this was the biggest show that they had ever received, and certainly the way it played out produced one of the more historic moments in UFC history.
Not only is it the most heavily attended UFC event of all time, but you have the 4 main fighters on the card all being female.
For just the second time in UFC history, at UFC 193, we had 2 women's fights that headlined the card. And this came at a time where women in the UFC were really starting to gain traction with the fan base.
When I started fighting over 10 years ago, women's mixed martial arts was not taken seriously. It was definitely an uphill journey.
Definitely another huge cultural shift where, hey, obviously people have accepted women as fighters.
Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I would have argued, was a prohibitive favorite going into that meeting with Valerie Letourneau, but there was nothing prohibitive about it after we saw those 25 minutes expire. Total domination for Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I found myself sitting at home wondering, would I be able to even absorb one of those kicks to the body? Probably not.
Joanna Jędrzejczyk, a 115-pound Polish lady, is an absolute assassin. She'll be mean to you, and then she's even meaner in the octagon.
Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she's one of my favorite fighters, men or women. She goes out there and she's just a complete gangster.
It was amazing to be a part of UFC 193. I was pretty excited that I could fight on the same card with Ronda Rousey, who is my idol.
Leading into the Holly Holm fight, Ronda Rousey was just on a tear.
You gotta understand, at this time, Ronda Rousey was winning fights in under a minute. She was knocking people out.
Ronda's dominance for her title reign was amazing. For her to be able to hold her title 8 different times was very impressive.
The betting line was pronounced. I think Ronda Rousey opened as high as minus 1250. But even though a lot of people quantified this as the biggest upset in UFC history, there were a lot of people that liked this matchup for Holly Holm stylistically.
Holly is no easy fight for anybody. She is pretty perfect. She sticks to a game plan. She never loses her cool.
I think one of the biggest things is just confidence against her. I think a lot of girls were mentally broken before they even stepped into the octagon that night.
She picked her apart. She had the perfect game plan. She stayed really composed. She was very focused.
And then the kick heard around the world. The place erupted.
I remember the feeling in the arena. I remember when it erupted and it was just like a bomb went off.
Imagining Ronda losing was just, you just didn't do it.
If anyone bet on that fight, they probably won a lot of money if they took Holmes, that's for sure.
So Kyle Noke was sort of a pioneer for mixed martial arts in Australia. He trained stateside a lot at Jackson Wink MMA in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but on this night, he was a 2-1 underdog, and you can argue this win against Peter Sabata was the biggest win of his career. He had a lot of big moments in the UFC, but I'm not sure there was anyone that was more special than this one in front of the adoring masses in Melbourne. To get a finish like that, the accompanying performance bonus, I would argue that's the biggest win of Kyle Noke's career, and it certainly couldn't have come on a better night for him. Leading up to UFC 193, a huge star, I think, was born in Robert Whittaker. He was able to beat Uriah Hall on the scorecards. It ended up being the 4th win on what became a 9-fight winning streak that included an undisputed UFC middleweight championship. We started with fireworks, we ended with the highlight of all highlights, and it all served to make UFC 193 truly one of the most memorable live events in the 25 or so year history of the UFC.